you may be doing all the work, but then there's a block. So
Absolutely.
first thing is clearing those out. Then we can do like the reframing of stories and revisioning of the stories and the beliefs and understanding our money mojo types and how those impact our decisions and how we show up. And so getting our consciousness in alignment. And that's the first thing, right? Then you can say, okay, now what are you going to create from this space? And how do you stay in alignment? How do you protect your environment? And that's your thoughts, the people you hang out with, the places you are, your own energy. How do you protect all that? So that you can be vibrationally aligned with what you want.
Today's guest is Bernette Sherman. The Money Mojo Mentor is a holistic mindset and manifestation mentor and author with a focus on helping women and couples create abundance through consciousness, manifestation, mindset shifting, and healing. Welcome, Bernette.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you for having me here. I am happy to be here today.
I'm so excited, and I'm excited to learn a thing or two too.
Of course, of course.
So, with that said, what is one of the most courageous things you have done?
You know, I was thinking about perhaps one of the most courageous things was stepping back on the pageant stage in 2019 as, you know, in my mid 40s and having the courage to try it again after being a pageant holder when I was very young. And there was a lot of fear. There was a
Mhm.
lot of fear of, you know, what if I fail? Like, what does that mean about me as a person, about my prior titles and prior experiences? And I did it anyway, and I came nowhere close to winning. But it was a valuable lesson for me because it did take a lot of courage to get up there and be willing to risk, you know, not coming out where you wanted to come out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And not only that, just the sheer, I would imagine for me, that'd be the sheer fear of standing up in front of everyone and, these pageants. It's
Yeah.
exciting, but at the same time, I would imagine terrifying.
There were moments I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have to wear a bathing suit." In
Is that-
front of it. Yeah.
yeah.
So it was definitely a great lesson, but there was a lot of overcoming self-judgment and, you know, the fear of a failure in who I was and my
Mm.
identity.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what way to do it? I mean, really putting yourself out there.
Really putting myself out there, but I did it.
Yeah. Because you were the former Miss.
Miss Black Georgia Metroplex and then Miss Black International. And, you know, once you have a title like that, it's hard to, you know, like, do I do it again and risk losing,
Oh,
you know?
yeah,
But
yeah.
sometimes we do. We
Mhm.
have to risk it. And sometimes you don't win.
And that's what it's all about. It's learning
Mhm.
from it and moving on. Take the
Right.
bits that you've learned, and absolutely. So, what a great journey that's been. So, from there, how did you get into what took you on your journey of being a money mojo mentor?
It's interesting. This is probably a more recent iteration. So
Hmm.
shortly before, so around that same time as I was
Hmm.
transforming myself into this pageant person, competitor, which was pretty much a year-long transformation for me.
Okay.
I started doing other things. So I was still do my spiritual work as a
Hmm.
coach and a healer and intuitive. But at the same time, people were asking me things that started relating to money.
Hmm.
And so that just kept coming up. And I started helping people, you know, from a spiritual lens, but also just a very practical lens about money. So it started like gravitating more to this other discussion. I was like, okay, there's clearly a need. There's clearly a demand for this, but I wasn't really promoting it. I was just by referral. Someone knew me. They knew I
Mhm.
talked about this. I worked with people on this, and it started becoming this thing I was doing just kind of under the surface. And until this year, when in the United States we were going through a lot of changes, and
Mhm.
the economy has gone in a direction where a lot of people are feeling the pain.
Mhm.
And I listened to Spirit and said, and asked, and what is my role in this?
Mhm.
Because last
Wow.
year I thought about doing it. And then there was just the fall just took me out, right? Like we had I went into hibernation
Okay.
after November for a good 3 months, and I just allowed myself to be, allowed myself to revision who I was going to be and what I was going to offer and what I was going to put to the side and what I was going to bring back up. And I just allowed myself that time to not have to be anybody for anyone. That was a challenge, but coming out of that, I said, okay, I listened and I said, okay, you want me to do this? That's fine. You got to help me. Right? Like, you want me to do this? I will do it. I will put myself out there because I didn't really want to put myself out there. I didn't really
Yeah.
want to have that be my identity.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's such a need. People need not just money skills, but how to create and manifest and bring things
Mhm.
in. And there's a need for that.
I
And
can
that's how I
imagine.
got into it publicly, I should say.
So really, you started off as just being a psychic. Is that right?
Well, my very, very beginning of my
Mhm.
journey, a psychic
Mhm.
and a healer.
Mhm.
So probably a lot of people come into it with Reiki and,
Mhm.
doing intuitive messages. And that was me. And began doing more spiritual coaching because I realized as a psychic, and this is this is probably why I don't just do psychic readings because it's never enough.
Yeah.
Like people come to you with an issue for a reason, and unless you deal with what that reason is, they'll just be back. And I'm one of those people who don't just come to me repeatedly for the same thing. That means that nothing's changing. There's no growth. So let's
Mhm.
let's work this out. Let's figure out what's going on. And so, yeah, I started that way and did more spiritual coaching, which became spiritual mindset coaching, spiritual mindset manifestation. And so, morphing into a focus on money because money impacts everything.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. What a journey.
it has been.
Yeah.
When I was thinking about coming on your show, Anita, I thought about, I was like, it's been almost 16, 17 years on this path. Technically, I just remember my daughter just turned 23 and she was
Wow.
just turning 4 when I learned that I was a
Mhm.
medium. So it's
Mhm.
been that long since
Mhm.
I've been on this path.
And I think like it's forever changing, it's forever learning, and we're forever evolving. And that's the issue, isn't it? That's the point of it. So it's
You are
beautiful.
right. You are right on. And it's forever doing all of those
Mhm.
things. And
Mhm.
who I am
Mhm.
today isn't who
Mhm.
I'll be in 5 years. And it's not who I was 5 years ago,
I
which is
mean,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The growth. And some people, they like where they are. And there's some of us that want to evolve.
And you know what? And I think
Mhm.
we need both. We need some
Mhm.
people who are stable and grounded and
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
keep the foundation. And
Mhm.
then we need some people who are just doing all kinds of things and sometimes and
Absolutely.
we go through phases too.
Yeah,
We go through
absolutely.
phases.
You focus on helping individuals and couples create abundance through conscious manifestation. Talk me through that a little and like, how does that all play out?
It's it can be a lot because conscious manifestation requires an alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you and many of your listeners probably understand that you cannot manifest anything you're not in alignment with.
Mm,
So you always have to go back and heal things, open things up, reveal what's holding back. And I deal a lot with are money ghost stories. I call them money ghost stories.
I
As
love
an
that.
author, I love stories.
Yeah.
So money ghost stories are generational and ancestral
Mm,
um, stories. The beliefs, our own experiences. And so I start with an assessment.
mhm,
And as a spiritual healer, I deal with what I call negative assignments and dark campaigns first to see if there's anything like energetically blocking us.
mhm.
Just you may be doing all the work, but then there's a block. So
Absolutely.
first thing is clearing those out. Then we can do like the reframing of stories and revisioning of the stories and the beliefs and understanding our money mojo types and how those impact our decisions and how
Mhm,
we show up. And so getting our consciousness in alignment. And that's the first thing, right? Then you can say, okay, now what are you going to create from this space? And how do you stay in alignment? And how do you protect your environment? And that's your thoughts, the people you hang out with, the places you are, your own energy. How do you protect all that?
yeah.
So that you can be vibrationally aligned with what you want. Because we manifest what we are, not
Mhm.
what we necessarily want. But if you can be what you want, you can get it.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that the three are related, the mindset shifting, the healing, and your conscious manifestation. Because you're right in saying if you don't heal, then you'd be repeating the same patterns.
It just keeps coming back,
Mhm,
and it's really hard when I see someone who they're doing the work,
mhm,
but they may not know how to protect their energy. And so
mhm.
their energy does this rising and falling and rising and falling, which means that when something is trying to come into you vibrationally, it can't land. It can't stick the landing because you're never in the same place.
Wow.
So it's like, how do you stay consistent long enough? And I'm not saying you got to hold that energy forever. It takes a lot of energy to hold energy.
Mhm, mhm.
But can you hold it long enough to get what you want? You know?
Really interesting. Hadn't thought of it
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hold it for a month
Mm,
to bring in and manifest something? 6 weeks? Or like, can you just hold it for long enough? And I guarantee if you can hold it for long enough to get that, your baseline energy is already going to elevate. So you
wow.
may be trying to hold it just to manifest a job,
Mhm,
but you start walking and living in that higher vibration. So, and I'm if on video, you'll be able to see it. You rise up to, say a level 7
mhm,
on a
mhm.
scale of 10. You rise up to a 7 to hold that vibration to manifest that job or manifest a relationship. Well, your new baseline, if you hold it that long, you're not going to go back to where you were before. Even if you drop down some, maybe you'll be a 5 now. And so next time you try to go up, you go up to an 8 to manifest the next thing. You drop down, you're a 6. So you're always going to be going up because your baseline's higher too.
Mm. And it's learning that we are actually just energy. It's understanding that. And I think the vibration, that's really interesting. Absolutely.
We
Yes.
are. And I
Yeah.
think, when we're energy, like you said, we
Mm,
are energy.
mm.
And the people we attract, the things we attract in life, everything is energy. And everybody's looking for a match. I mean, everybody's looking for a match.
Mm.
Everything is looking for a match.
Yeah, because the saying is, "Oh, that person's on my vibration" or something like that, and it actually is
Mhm.
so true. We don't realize
Yeah.
some of the quotes we use ourselves.
All the time. And we don't think
Mm,
about it.
mm,
Or I don't like the vibe in this place.
absolutely,
It's because it's rubbing against yours the wrong way.
it's so
Yeah.
true. I mean, yeah. How often do you hear that? Do you actually like people actually understand? It literally means that.
Right. It's not just a catchphrase. Yeah.
Yeah,
That we
yeah.
have a vibe. We have a vibe. And
Mm,
sometimes when someone just walks into them and they don't like you,
mm,
it's because your vibe and their vibe just are really
mm.
misaligned.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
if someone's listening right now is thinking, my finances are a mess, where do I even start? What would you say to them?
But if their finances are a mess, I
Mm,
would go to the money skills part. Because
okay.
before you can even think about manifesting sometimes you got to just be stable. Some people are just
Mhm.
like, I can't think about, getting on the vibration to manifest something when like I'm stressed, I'm worried, my bills are
Mhm.
late, all of that stuff. The first thing is to get your money skills in order. It's to figure out what you're spending, where you're spending it, why you're spending it, what income is coming in. If you've got debt, it's to pay down debt as much as you can
Mhm.
and to really make a dent in that. Americans, especially, are in serious debt. And I know that if Americans are, the rest of the world probably are too, right? Everyone
Yeah.
is living in this debt where people are financing food, you
Wow.
know, they're financing their next meal. And they'll be paying for a
Mm.
meal now for a month instead of now. So really understanding where your money is and what it's doing for you so that you
Mm.
can start getting the foundational things, your savings in order, debt paid off, start building for the future.
Mm.
That's really, I mean, without that, you won't be able to be in a place where you're like, okay, I can sit in peace and really dream, think, envision that rich life. And I don't mean just monetarily, that rich and full life I really want to have.
Absolutely. So tell me more about your work and what it entails now.
So now I do those three things. So the
Mhm.
healing, and I
Mhm.
do money activation sequences. So after healings to actually amplify
Mm.
the money coming in, but also do education.
Okay.
And I do some volunteer work with a nonprofit here in Atlanta for money skills, financial literacy. So I
Mhm.
do that part because once you do start manifesting, so there's two parts. Some people are at a point where they may say, I don't have everything in order financially, but I'm not feeling too bad, right?
Mhm.
I'd like to have more. So I'd like to manifest money. And when you start manifesting, what do you do with it though? So, I mean, MC Hammer from the 90s made millions and was broke in the 90s as well,
Wow.
bankrupt. So just because you make a ton of money doesn't mean you have the skills to keep it. And that's the key, right?
Mhm.
In building abundance and building wealth is you have to know what to do with it once you have it. So I help people along that full scale of healing the past so that they can build, manifest, and then also keep the money that they bring in.
Wow. Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, you hear
Mhm.
about all these stories about people that have inherited money or the lotto winners, and the money comes in and they've lost it within months
Yes,
because they don't know how
yes.
to keep hold of a vast amount of money.
And I talk about that in the book that comes out next month, Money
Mhm.
Skills for Your Rich Life, is the number of lottery winners who
Mm.
file for bankruptcy is more than the
Wow.
average population here in the States. So
Mm.
it's because, like I was saying about when you say if you're holding onto a vibration to manifest something, you're going to rise higher. But the lottery winner is instant, right? They've instantly won this money
Yes.
that changes their whole financial situation, but they have not created the mindset or
Mm.
the skills to handle it. It's like
Yeah.
putting a first grader in 12th grade and saying, okay, take the test.
Yeah.
They're not prepared. It's a setup for failure.
This is it. And I'm glad you said that because you've got to realize that. You've got to go through the stages to understand where you're at. And if you
Hmm.
don't actually have some kind of understanding of money and how to keep hold of it once you've got it, I'm not saying invest it all, you want to spend some of
Hmm.
it, but some people, they just spend it all.
They
So,
spent it all, and that's the thing.
mm,
They
mm,
overspend.
mhm,
And so if you do hit the lottery,
mhm,
because some people obviously, not all of them are bankrupt. If you do hit
mhm,
the lottery, get a professional financial advisor.
mm.
Don't tell anybody you hit the numbers
Yeah,
until you've got a plan in place to manage
absolutely.
it.
And it's so
That's
true, isn't it?
yeah. Have a plan, have somebody call a financial advisor, a legitimate financial advisor
Mm.
that not just an accountant, a legitimate financial advisor
Mhm.
who can help you plan for the long run to
Mhm.
help you manage that money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bernette, you are a playwright and a director as well as an author of more than 13 books. Tell me
Yeah.
more, and how do you make time for it all? Is the biggest question.
Well, this is and I a beautiful thing about my life, and I love my life
Mm,
unapologetically. I'm very lucky, fortunate, blessed to have the space and the time to create.
mm,
I am. And I started writing 9 years ago. I published my first book in 2016 and just kept writing. I didn't know that I would write this many books. I didn't know I had that much to say.
mm,
And I keep saying, I'm not going to write any more books. And literally, I just put one up for um, on Amazon for pre-order, and I've got another one that on manifestation that's going to come out next year.
mm.
But I'm a writer, and I've always been. So my plays, one of them was selected for the She ATL Summer Theater Festival in 2021. I'm
Wow.
very proud of that one. I wrote and I directed that play
Mm,
for that festival. And then a shorter play was part of the Blue series, which was done in Atlanta. And I wrote one of those plays that was part of an evening of connected stories. So very
mhm.
pleased with that. And then as an author, just across different genres from sci-fi and fantasy to rom-com and poetry, self-help, nonfiction.
Wow, you covered all the bases.
You know what? I enjoy writing, and then I start
Mm,
with an idea sometimes and just keep going. But I have probably just as many ideas that aren't ever going to become books that I've written a few pages and it's like, yeah,
mm,
no. But it has been fun. And I get to do it on my time. And I think you asked how do I make time for it? It's because I don't work a traditional full-time job.
mhm,
My first
mhm.
job is as a mom and a wife, and everything else fits within those spaces. Fits, around
Yeah, that's
that
beautiful.
flexibility. Yeah.
So, what would you say to someone who knows they're meant for more but feels stuck in fear or doubt?
That is such a great question. There's so many there's so many of us stuck in fear or doubt
Mm,
or disbelief.
mhm,
And in today's age of social media, we see so much, and it's hard
mhm.
to know what's real and what is just for show.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think a lot of the fear and the doubt comes from this idea that they won't be able to do what someone else that they see is doing. And they think that their success has to look like that.
Mm,
And I think people need to take that back a little bit because your success, what you deem as your rich life, your success, having stability is going to look different than someone else's. So just go for what you want and be willing to do the work and see what's possible, because the more like baby steps allow you to have some successes, some micro successes, and those micro successes build on each other until you're like, yeah, I'm competent, I'm confident, I can do this. And just take those steps and say, okay, I did that, now what's next? And I think that's sometimes the secret is just taking it one step at a time and realizing it's about progress and not perfection, and you don't have to do
mm.
it all in one day. You don't have to do it all in one week.
And it's so
Yeah.
true. I mean, I can only echo what you've just said about people want things instantly because of the social media platforms. You see people, you want to be like them, and then you beat yourself up. You've tried it for a week and you're not like them. But what they don't realize is what comes underneath that, the years and the years of hard
Yes.
work.
Yes.
And
Yes. They
it's so
say it's like
true.
10 years for it to be an overnight success, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
so it's not
Mm,
instantaneous. It's not instantaneous, but
mm.
I think everything is possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is possible.
Yeah.
If we take the time, we can if we take the time and we're patient with ourselves
Mm,
and we're not expecting, a microwave manifestation, money, life, we can do it.
absolutely. And yeah, 2 minutes ping and it's ready.
Right. It's like, wait, you don't even have your plate set. Like, you don't have to, like, you got to have a table, you got to have a plate, you don't have your fork, and
Mm,
you're not ready to accept that into your life. And I think
mm,
that's a lot of times people, they want
mm,
things in their life, but they're not even ready
mm.
to receive them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And fear and doubt also goes back to, I think, another thing that people need to think about with fear and doubt. And I mean, I experience fear and doubt. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you just wake up one day and you're like, oh, this is the level of success. Check mark. I no longer have fear or doubt. No, like every time I put a book out, I have fear and doubt. Like, are
Mhm.
people gonna hate it? Is it gonna suck? Will it matter? Does my voice matter? Like, that's always the case. But I put them out anyway because I'm like, I've taken the time to write the book. I'm gonna put it out. At the same time, there's things where I'm like, are people going to receive this message? You
Mm,
know, even the one I'm sharing with you right now.
mhm, mhm.
There's still fear and doubt. There's still that little element, but we move through it anyway. We do it anyway. We show up for our lives anyway.
Absolutely. And I think to just add to that, are people going to receive the message? Are they open enough as well? Sometimes, that people think they've heard something, they've heard it all. It's been open to new perspectives as well.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Mm,
I love what you just said there, being open to new perspectives, because sometimes we expect to hear things a certain way from certain
mm,
people, and that's how we can receive it.
mm,
But are you open to it coming to you from someplace else,
mm.
a voice you
Absolutely.
weren't expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to ask you my next question because you've got a new book coming out. It's on pre-order, Money Skills for Your Rich Life. Tell me more.
Oh, yes. I'm excited about this. And it's funny because my mom's like, it's not going to be a really long book, is it? She's like, and I was like, no, no, it's not going to be really long. So it's not really long. And my goal was to give people something that digestible, practical,
Mhm,
that they could read and they could implement.
mhm,
And so this book covers financial fundamentals
mhm,
like income, expenses, budgeting, saving, debt and credit, and then a little bit even on starting investing, so
mhm,
that you have the foundations to get your money skills in order. You can get your financial freedom started and get secure and stable. And it was really important to me because when I came out of college, I didn't have money skills. But I didn't even
mhm.
know I didn't have money skills. You don't even know what you don't know.
Exactly.
I'm just, making mistakes left and right. And, going into debt, taking out loans I shouldn't have taken out. And I'm like, if this book can help someone maybe avoid some of that, then they don't have to dig their way back out. Or if you're in it, how to dig your way out, right? Like, if you're
Mm,
in it, how to make a plan, how to get yourself in a position where you can start feeling more stable, moving to security, and eventually moving to financial freedom.
absolutely. And that's what it's
Yeah,
all about. You know, these
it
things
is.
are there for help us in our lives.
Yeah,
And
and I titled it, Rich Life, because one,
mm,
you do need money. A lot of
mm,
people feel like, oh, I don't need money. We live in a world where money is a currency that
mhm,
is used to exchange goods and services.
mhm,
You need money. And to say otherwise, I think, is to live in kind of a fairy tale land, which I love fairy tale lands. Written some, right? But that's not what we're dealing with in a practical sense. We
mhm,
do need money, unless you're planning on going back to kind of a nomadic lifestyle, or hunter gatherer lifestyle. We do. We need money, and we need the ability to manage it and to use it for good. Money has no energy. It's just the
mhm,
energy that we put on it.
mhm,
It is neutral, and it expands people's natural being. So if you are a mean person, you're going to be a mean person with money. If you are a nice person, you're going to be a nice person with money. And what you do with it is going to be a reflection of who you are.
mm. They're so true. I love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely love that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited about this book. I call it a little book because it's not as big as some of my novels and bigger books, but it's got a lot of information, and it complements the Money Mojo workbook. They work together,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have to be purchased together.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if there was one key takeaway you want every listener to walk away with today, what would that be?
It would be that, and I said it earlier, but I just want to reiterate it. We can only manifest what we already are vibrationally,
Mm-hmm.
and we can only hold on to what we are. And I'm gonna add that part because I think people, this is why raising your vibration is important. You can't manifest what you aren't. So if you want a spouse or partner, you have to be the energy that you're trying to bring in. You have to be that. To keep it, you have to stay that. So that's why you have to raise your vibration. And there's bands, right? We fluctuate within these bands. And it's almost like the radio station. If it's tuned just slightly off, you can still hear it, but it's staticky.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still hear it, and you can still kind of get it, and it lets you, fine tune it a little bit more. You get back onto the right frequency. So sometimes you're fluctuating in here, but you got to stay where you can hear that station coming in order to keep what you've been able to bring in. And I think people just need to be very mindful of that. And it happens to all of us. We get off of our frequency and we're like completely out of tune. And we feel it when we're not in alignment. We can feel when we're not vibrating right. We're not in our right energy. And I've gone through periods where it's like, and at that time it's like, okay, I know it's not right. I got to get myself out. And then having tools to use to bring yourself out. Some people use meditation. Some people read things, I read, I listen to podcasts. I'll listen to things that inspire me, and I move my body. I learned when I went through my wellness journey a year and a half or so ago that working out, lifting weights, is a grounding force for me. Like literally you're touching iron, right? And so it grounds me. And when I do that, and so that's part of my regular practice now since I started that journey. When I do that, I stay grounded. And it's like this holistic thing. I've got the physical aspect in place, and that can be mental and spiritual, and it all works together.
It's absolutely beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you.
So, where can the listeners find you online, your books? What's your website, Bernette?
Of course. You can find me at BernetteSherman.com. So my first and last name.com. And my books can all be found on Amazon. But if you want to go to my website, you can also search for the books. There are some other places you can find it if you don't shop on Amazon, most of them. The Money Skills for Your Rich Life book will start on Amazon, and it'll be in Kindle to start. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free to start. And yeah, you can find me there. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at I Am Bernette. And on Facebook, which I don't use as much, at I Am Bernette Sherman.
Brilliant.
Follow me and say hi. I'd love to hear from you and know more about what your Money Mojo type is and what you're doing to manifest and get your money right.
That's absolutely wonderful. And thank you for sharing that. All the links will be in the show notes. So do go ahead, do have a look, see which books resonate with you, and purchase them and connect with Bernette.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita.
So thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I know you have helped so many others make a difference. I really want to acknowledge you for that, Bernette Sherman.
Thank you, Anita. I appreciate you holding the space.
My absolute pleasure. So, with that said, we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. What is your definition of courage?
It's acting, taking intentional action in spite of fear. My name is Bernette, which means brave. And, my mother, taught me that young as you have to act in spite of.